Hey neighbor, I am installing a drip irrigation kit in my mother-in-law's raised beds today and going to show you just how easy it is. So mother-in-law bought her two of these large raised beds off the internet, and I said, we can fix you up with an irrigation system with our drip irrigation kit for raised beds. So I got everything laid out there, and I am putting on the filter regulator combo on to the main line there, and it just screws on there. And we stretch out the main line because it's got a little memory to it being wrapped, coiled up there. So we stretch it out, and the sun's going to hit it and straighten it on out. We're going to hide this underneath that pine straw there, it won't be seen. And we got way more than we need for these two raised beds, but I'm going to fix it so she can add on to more later. And I stretch it out there. Now we are going to put the tubing up into the first raised bed there. Now ideally you would do this before the potting soil is put in there, but I dug down through there and got our 1/4-inch tubing pushed up through there fine and got it covered up. We would rather do this than run it on the outside where it could get snagged or something. I'd rather have it out of sight, out of mind. So that's the reason I decided to run it up into the raised beds. So we're cutting it off there, and here we're on the other one, pushing our tubing down through there. This tubing is really pliable, so it bends a lot on you. It's real easy to work with there. You see kind of we're pushing it through the bottom there. We're going to hook that on to our mainline tubing. We just take it and pin our mainline tubing down, and then we're going to get ready with these transfer barbs. This is what you use to hook the tubing to the mainline. We take our green punch tool and we're going to punch us a hole in our main line there. Then we're going to take the transfer barb, stick in there, and you'll hear this thing pop once it sits in there. Kind of push it in, and then we're going to push our 1/4-inch tubing. Now this tubing is solid tubing. It does not have the emitters in it. We're going to push it onto the main line, and this is what's going to carry our water up into the raised bed where we're going to attach our drip tubing on. So we got that in there. Now we're getting ready to put our drip tubing on. So we'll get to the top side of the bed. We install a T into the solid tubing. We're going to come off from there with just a little bit. I didn't measure these off. I just kind of sighted it by eye. We're going to put 4 lines in this raised bed here. And we're going to cut us off a little short piece of that solid tubing. And we're going to put us a T in there because we're going to come back on there with some more of the solid tubing and go to the end. So we're going to add us a little bit more solid tubing there. Come off a little bit further. Ideally, you would measure these off and kind of space them evenly. You ain't got to get them exact. Sometimes I put 2 rows in a raised bed, sometimes 4. 4 is probably the best way to do it. And I'm putting my elbow in the end there because that's the end of the solid tubing there. So we got the T and we got the elbow. Well, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and that's going to set us up for the 4 rows of drip tubing. This stuff's real easy to work with. Now, it's just like the mainline tubing. Sometimes it has to have the sun hit it a little bit before it straightens out. But once the sun hits it, you get it pinned down, this stuff will straighten out on you pretty well. So there we're doing the same thing we did the other side, just pushing those fittings in there, and we're going to put us an elbow on the end. Now that's going to wrap up what we need as far as solid tubing on this bed here. We'll stick our elbow on the end there. Sometimes you got to do a little wiggle with it to get it in there. Yep. All right, so we're ready to run our drip tubing. First of all, we're going to flush out our system in case we got any dirt in there anywhere. I'm going to do this a couple different times, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the water on and flush out the main line and the solid tubing there just in case we got any trash in there. It didn't take long. Just turn your water on, and once you see that water coming out, you can start with your main line. You want to take your main line first, put your figure 8 on it, and stop it. And then you want to let your solid tubing run just a minute, and then you want to turn it off, and you're ready to install your drip tubing at that point. All right, with this kit, you get 200 feet, two 100-foot rolls of the drip tubing. Now, this drip tubing has the emitters already built in, and they're 6 inches apart. So we're going to lay this out. Now, ideally what you would do is go ahead and pre-cut all your lines the same length, because really and truly they all going to be the same length. Save you just a little bit of time. I ended up doing that after I put the first one in and got my first length that I needed there. So then I just pulled it out there and cut it. And after that, I measured my others out, because it's all going to be the same length. You can use a pair of scissors. You can use a good sharp pocket knife, whatever you got to cut this stuff. It's not that bad to cut. You just want to make sure you don't cut on an emitter. All right, so I got them cut. Now it's time to put the drip tubing with emitters onto the mainline tubing, the trunk line as I call it up front. We got all these and we're just installing them all at one time. Then we're going to straighten them out, pin them down, and put them in place. Now the trick to using this stuff is having pins. You got to pin it down so it stays where you want it to stay. And once the sun hits it a little bit, it'll get better at that. But still like to use these pins. And you get a bunch of these pins, and we call them tubing stakes actually. The garden pins is what holds the mainline tubing down. The tubing stakes is the one we're using right now to hold the tubing down. You get 100 of these tubing stakes in a kit. So there we are, just taking them out. There's Granny hipping me. Stake them down. Get them pretty straight there. So she's going to have plenty of water there in this bed here. All right. After we get through putting them down there, we want to flush them out again in just a minute. And then at the end, we'll put our goof plugs in the end of our tubing so it stops it up. Now we're working on the other bed. Everybody's getting part of it now. I got some help going. So we laying it out there, putting our stakes in there. Just look how easy that is. All right, so we almost done. The last thing we got to do is flush the lines out again. There we go with that. This gets any of the dirt in there that we may have got in there. Keeps those lines nice and clean. Flush them out just for a minute, maybe say 30 seconds or a minute at the most. Then we're going to take goof plugs, which looks real similar to the transfer barb, but they don't have a hole going all the way through them. And then we're going to stop them up. That's what we're doing right here, is stopping up the end of the line, or plugging up the end of the line. These things push right in there just like the transfer barbs do. This drip tubing puts out a ½ a gallon per hour per emitter. So that means you're putting out a gallon per foot per hour, which is a lot of water. Raised beds, if they only got one downfall, it takes a lot of water for them. They dry out quicker. So it's important, if you're doing raised bed gardens, to have some kind of irrigation kit or some kind of irrigation plan for your raised beds there. This system right here is one of those easy systems that's durable, well made, and anybody can install it.